back, everybody. Hey, Coach, and the Nick Saban Show. Live from Tuscaloosa, Bob Baumhauer's Victory Grill. The coach making his way in, and as per usual, leans over, gives his wife a kiss, and says hello to a few folks from the Nick's Kids Foundation and other people who are key to the program. And he makes his way up here onto the stage and settles in. If you'd like to join us, 877-202-BAMA. That's the phone number, 877-202-BAMA. Coach, good to see you, sir. How are you?
Good to be seen, man.
I bet. It's better to be seen than to be viewed. I promise you that. Hey, a young lady came up and dropped that note off before.
Yeah.
Very said, I love you. I'm your favorite fan. And
where is she?
She is here somewhere. Where'd she go? We'll find her and get her to come up here and get them. I loved also the fact that you walked in the door. First thing you did was go and see Kerry Good, who was here. You know, Kerry, a great running back at Alabama, then in his days with Tampa Bay and the Denver Broncos and the Miami Dolphins. He is here, and a friend of his, a guy from Minnesota, came down, Ethan, who spent time with you at practice today. People don't realize, they should, and I'm sure they do maybe to some degree, how much this program and you and the family of Alabama faithful mean to people who are battling as Kerry is.
Yeah, but I also think people should appreciate the fact that as much as Kerry is battling, that he's doing so much for so many other people.
That's very true.
You know, that's the thing that I admire most about him, and I think everybody should give him a hand for, all that he's doing to
he's right over here,
help
folks.
a lot of other folks. Yes, sir.
Yeah, he's right up against the window over here to our left.
We appreciate it, and we did actually have someone at practice today, and we almost put him to work out there. But
there you go. But I'll tell you, it means the world, and you've said it too. We were talking, of course, many times over the years about the deal when the tornadoes came through town, and how you learned that just listening to people is what they wanted. And in a situation like this, we can all learn so much from Kerry, who's battling ALS. God forbid disease that anybody should have to deal with. And he has got such a bright outlook on life. I don't know if I could do that.
Well, and it's all about your heart, and it's all about who you are and what you think about other people and how much you sort of appreciate having relationships with other people and helping other people.
Exactly.
I don't think you get any more positive self-gratification for anything that you can do more than that. So I know that's one thing that Miss Terry and I have tried to do in the community, and sometimes your presence and just being there for people is more important than you realize. But people need support. People need to be helped. People need to gain confidence. When you gain confidence, you have a much, much better chance of being successful. And even if we just show leadership and show them the way, that confidence can, kind of bring their expectations, into reality.
Sure.
If you can support them and help them and show them the way.
Well, Kerry, great to have you here. Keep it up. God bless you. And I talked to him on the phone the other day. We talked earlier. It's wonderful to see how he is fighting nonstop. Charlie Potter is here with us now, seated between the coach and I, a reporter for Bama Online. Good to see you again, Charlie. Great to have you with us.
Good to be here.
Why don't you open things up with a question for the coach?
Yeah, Coach, I wanted to ask you about the wide receivers. You talked about them on Monday and even after the game. I think 4 of those guys were your players of the week. Just how has that group as a whole kind of made progress from the start of the season?
Well, I think that the entire group and the entire offensive team has made tremendous, progress in terms of how we've improved in the offensive line. I thought the receivers were outstanding in this last game at Kentucky, even though we were down, Jermaine Burton and down Ja'Cory Brooks. Young guys stepped up, guys that hadn't played as much, played extremely well. They prepared well, and I was really, really proud of that group. I think Jalen's leadership has, contributed to that development of what we talked about before, which is, confidence. People having confidence, man, is so important to be successful. It kind of connects your expectations to your performance, and it gives you a lot of positive reinforcement for the investment that you made because of the results that you start to get. So that's been something that I think has helped us overall offensively, but especially the receiver group and the quarterback and how they work together to, sort of grow and develop into making lots of good plays for us.
That is Coach Nick Saban. This is the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. Protect your cars, home, life, and business with Alpha. Now, tonight's first question on the phone, brought to you by Alabama 811. To help prevent injuries, outages, and loss of life, call 811 or visit al811.com before you dig. As Pee Wee in Grand Bay, Alabama can tell you, it's free, it's simple, and it's the law. Pee Wee, welcome into the show. How are you?
I'm doing well, Eli.
Good.
Coach, how are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks. I think your guys played pretty well last game.
Yes, sir, I believe they did, and then here in the past few weeks, they've done nothing but get better and better and better each week. But what I'd like to ask you is on Caden Proctor, how has his confidence helped him in his play? And then also, how has Jaden Roberts, since he has been moved into the starting lineup, how has his play affected our offensive line?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, Caden Proctor has gained a lot of confidence through the course of the season. I think a lot of players around him have gained a lot of confidence, but I also think the players around him have learned how to help him play better. I think one of the things that was a little bit of a problem early on, and at times it's still a problem, whether it's on defense, offensive line, or whatever position, is communication. When players communicate and they can anticipate what's going to happen before it happens, I think you have so much better chance to execute and everybody be on the same page and everybody do their job. And, there were numerous times early on where we would not communicate something, assuming that the other guy saw it the way they saw it, and he didn't really see it that way, so we didn't end up blocking the right guys, whether it was in pass protection or run game. I think the players are doing a better job of communicating. I think everybody's more comfortable in their role. I think that's impacted each and every player on the offensive line to play better. I think Jaden Roberts has done a good job at guard. The thing that he gives us inside, which I think is so important, especially when you run zone runs, is he's a powerful guy. And when you're a powerful guy and you can get movement on a 3 technique or a 2-eye, that really helps the running back when he presses the hole, and it makes the linebacker decide which gap do I want to fit in. And it makes you much more effective, in the run game when you can play with that kind of power. So I think those two guys have been a key to it. We still have a lot of confidence in, Darian Dalcourt. He's been a really good player for us. He played center some, in the last game. He was the right guard, got injured, was out for a while. But I do think that, he can play and contribute inside as well.
Coach, you mentioned Jalen earlier. I think he's a guy that we saw in that first drive get a bruise on his leg and play through it. Just what does that say about him as a competitor to go out there and still make plays for his teammates when he's dealing with some pain?
Yeah, well, I think that, ability to overcome adversity is probably the mental toughness, whatever you want to talk about. Jalen really wants to be a good player. So, that's where your sort of focus comes from in terms of your goals and aspirations and things that you want to accomplish. And then your passion for it is how bad you want to do it and what are you willing to do and what are you willing to invest in. Then the mental toughness to overcome adversity, overcome hard. Things always aren't going to go exactly like you planned them to. Sometimes it's not even your fault, and you have to deal with adversity that's created by some external circumstance. And I think all those things, Jalen's always been a hard worker. He's always been focused. He's always wanted to be good. He's invested a tremendous amount in terms of his improvement. And he's always been a tough guy, too. He's big, he's physical, he's fast, he's not afraid of contact. Sometimes, because he is the quarterback, I cringe a little bit when he runs into him instead of getting on the ground. But you got to admire the toughness, and I think that's contagious on your team, too. That when he plays the way he plays, it inspires other guys on the team to play that way as well. So To have that kind of mental toughness and be that kind of competitor, I think is really, really important. He was a little slow earlier in the week, but he's really come around, and he was back up to speed yesterday, actually, full speed.
Super. Good to hear that. Coach, a question from the Nick Saban Show readers on AL.com. It comes from Dana in Clanton, Alabama. She says, "Hey, Coach, you seem to really enjoy coaching this year's team. What makes this senior class special as we get ready to honor them on Saturday? Thank you, and Roll Tide."
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it because, this is always a game because we don't have school during Thanksgiving week, so a lot of students are not here. This game sometimes does not draw the kind of attention and crowd that we would like, but I think from the standpoint of showing your appreciation for what a class of guys have done over 4 or 5 years in terms of how they've represented the university, the quality of football they've played, the number of games that they've won. These guys all won a national championship in 2020. And to show your appreciation, I just hope everybody comes out and really, really supports this group and their family. These guys have done a first-class job in every way in terms of the kind of people they are, the way they've represented the institution. And I don't think anybody really realizes how hard it is to be a student athlete. You all come to the game, you watch the guys play, and you think you're watching the same thing as pro football players do. These guys go to class, they got to go to study table, they all have tutors. We have really stringent rules and regulations on checking what they're doing academically. We have personal development programs that they have to invest their time in. And then they work in football 20 hours a week, which is pretty intense in terms of practice and time spent. So these guys put a lot into it. And I think sometimes people take that for granted, that, hey, these guys just show up and we got a good team and we win this many games, and it gives us something to cheer about. And I understand we're in the entertainment business, and I think they understand that too. But they're also college student athletes, and I think as much appreciation as you can show for these guys and the special way that they've represented the university and the good football that they've played and the entertainment that they've provided for you because of the quality of football they played is something worthwhile to come out and pay respect to.
Indeed so. Hey, Coach, on the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. Protect your car's home, life, and business with Alpha. We continue with the coach and with Charlie Potter joining us as our media guest from Bama Online here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Third and a bunch. Milroe on the shotgun, stepping up in the pocket, looking, firing downfield, has a man, catch is made, touchdown Alabama.
Jalen Milroe with another touchdown pass. He's got 16 of those this season to go with 6 interceptions. He is also rushed for a dozen touchdowns as Alabama gets set for this weekend's meeting with Chattanooga and a 9-1 record. Chattanooga, of course, in the Southern Conference, and they are playing fairly well. And like you mentioned before, Charlie Potter, Chase Artapius is the quarterback, a kid who transferred in from UCLA, and he has got some great numbers, a career high 399 passing yards, 5 touchdowns against Western Carolina. The guy's for real.
Yeah, he's a good player, and he's got some good players around him. I think Coach Saban was complimentary of them in his press conference last night. So, this is an offense that can pose some challenges, but, they are an FCS opponent.
Yes.
But I think bringing in players from a Power 5 conference shows that, they can get the job done too.
Yeah, and again, that's one thing that we've seen. It doesn't matter if it's just in the SEC or wherever, also here out of the Bowl Championship subdivision. That's the big thing. And Coach, you were talking about it on your press conference yesterday. Chase Artapius, the quarterback for Chattanooga, transferred in from UCLA, and that's something we never used to see in the old days, and the guy's good.
Yeah, he's a very good player, very smart player, very accurate with the ball. He's a good athlete. They've got a pretty good receiving core. They're one of the top teams offensively in the country in their division. That's what they play in, but they have a really, really good team. And I think, he does a lot of reading. They throw a lot of RPOs, really well coached, team. And they really play hard on defense, and they're very, very aggressive. So, I watched the 2016 game, and it was kind of amazing to, you kind of forget all the guys,
Sure.
Reuben Foster, Allen, Minka, Ronnie Harrison. I mean, all these guys that are playing in the NFL are out there playing against these guys, and we're halfway through the second quarter, and we're behind 3-0.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know how many guys they had playing in the NFL, but that just goes to show you if you're not ready to play, and complacency kills momentum. So if you don't respect the other team and then you don't build on like the rhythm and the momentum that we've created by how we've improved and sort of stack some positive performance here, it's just like when you have momentum in a game, and people see it in basketball all the time. When you go on a 10, 12-point run, you get the momentum that sometimes the other team never gets it back. So once you lose it, it may be hard to come back. And that's what I've tried to emphasize with our players, that we can, this game can hurt us a lot more in a lot of ways by us not building, and stacking positive performance to be able to play and continue to have a rhythm that is something that's positive, and it goes with confidence, and you have these expectations that you don't have the right respect for the other team, and you go out there and things don't go well, you get frustrated. So you really got to have the right mindset, and I got to be honest with you, the players have been pretty good this week, so hopefully that'll carry over to the performance in the game. But I can promise you there's not one guy that doesn't dream about, that's going to play against us on Saturday, that doesn't dream about, is there any way in the world can we beat Alabama?
Yeah.
And hoping and praying and thinking in every way they can that they can do that, because this is one of the biggest games and biggest opportunities they have to play, and that's how they play in these kind of games, and we have to respect that, and our guys have to do a really good job.
Exactly. Coach, we have somebody right here in front with a question for you, a young man. Hi there, good evening.
Who do you think is the best player you've ever coached?
Oh boy, that's not, it's a good question.
Yeah.
But I think it would be unfair to so many players, because we had so many great players, to say that one guy was the best player. Even to pick out a guy, like we've had 7 first-round draft pick wide receivers, to pick out one of those guys and say that one of those guys is better than the other 6 would almost disrespect the other 6 guys, because they were all great players. So we just had so many good players. And I think the thing that I admire most about the good players that we've had is they're talented guys, but they have the right kind of character. They do the right things. They treat people the right way. They have compassion for other people. They're hard workers. They set a good example in what they do. They care about their teammates. So that's what made them great players to start with. So, and we've had a ton of those guys, and most of them are having great careers in the NFL. And if you want to emulate something, emulate that part of who they are, because whatever you choose to do in your life, then you're going to have a good chance to be successful, because most people don't do those things.
Great question. Thank you for joining us here at the restaurant. Charlie, why don't you jump back on in?
Yeah, Coach, going back to senior day for a second, you've said in the past when you go out for that pregame ceremony, you kind of go back to the recruiting days and go into those in-home visits. I remember your story about Ross Pierce-Baker and that snowstorm in Iowa. Do you have maybe a thing that sticks out about any of the guys in this class?
Wow. If you'd show me a list, I'm sure I'd have a good story about somebody. But yeah, that Ross Pierce-Baker story was something else. Mm-hmm. It's in a snowstorm. Mario Cristobal's the offensive line coach. He grew up in Cuba, lived in Miami all his life. He's never seen snow, and I tried to talk him into letting me drive from the airport to the kid's house, and he wouldn't let me do it. Right. It was bad. It was a bad deal. But we survived.
Yeah. But no, there are great stories, I'm sure. Was there a guy that you did recruit that when you left their place, you said to yourself, well, this isn't going to work out. He's not coming here. And then he surprised you by coming to Alabama? Was anything like that?
There's all kind of surprises in recruiting. There's surprises that guys tell you they are coming for a year, and then all of a sudden they tell you they're not coming.
Yeah.
All right, so it kind of goes both ways. And then you got guys that, were committed. Caden Proctor, he was committed a long time to Iowa. And at the last minute, he and his mother decided this is a better place. No disrespect to Iowa. I mean, just for him to have success, we had an opportunity to play early, the kind of support we were going to give him personally and academically. So there's, always sort of stories like that.
Sure.
One of my favorite all-time stories, and I may have told you this before, and I may have told everybody this before, and you may not even remember the players, but Andre Rison was a pretty good
Yes.
NFL player, and most people would recognize that name. So when I was an assistant coach at Michigan State, defensive coordinator, we recruited Andre Rison. And everybody knows who Joe Manchin is, too. I think he was the governor of West Virginia maybe way back then. And so Terry and I are driving home for Christmas. And Joe calls and says, Alberta Brown wants to talk to you. I said, Alberta Brown? I said, you mean the lady that, she had a garbage business. She picked up garbage in all the communities and all that. And I said, why would she want to see me? And he said, that's Andre Rison's grandma.
Uh-huh.
From my hometown in West Virginia.
Really?
And we weren't getting him. He was going to go to another school. I won't mention any names. It wasn't Michigan, but it was another school in the Big Ten. And she told me all the stuff that they were doing and exactly what we needed to do to get him. Now, the problem was it was Christmas Eve.
Oh, brother.
And I had to go see her on Christmas Eve. And Miss Terry's mom had her Christmas party on Christmas Eve. That's when the family came over.
Sure.
And Miss Alberta liked to have a taste or two. All right, so I stayed there a little too long and got really in lots of trouble for missing some of the Christmas party. Damn near all of it. But we got Andre Rison.
But you got Andre Rison. Yeah, there you go. It's very, very simple. You got to get your priorities in order there, and it worked. It worked out well. Let's go to the phones, and Adam in Milledgeville, Milledgeville, Georgia, I assume. Hello, Adam. Good evening.
Hi, Coach. How are you?
Doing good, Adam. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Coach, you've had an incredible history of success as a coach, as a teacher, and a mentor. I know, everyone thanks you for all that you do. The reality, though, is that the pressure on you is unimaginable. I mean, you're the best coach in college football history. You coach in front of 100,000 plus fans, and you deal with the media and incredibly high expectations. So I guess my question for you is, how are you doing, and how do you handle this type of pressure and still manage to, have a successful marriage, children, and a happy life?
Well, it's interesting that you would ask that, but I don't. I kind of have standards and expectations for what I expect from each individual player in terms of helping them reach their full potential and play to their best capabilities, and to try to do the same thing with our team. So I'm probably our greatest critic. I don't listen to the internet. I don't listen to what people say or think or whatever that much. Not that I disrespect what they think. I just don't pay any attention to it because I don't want it to affect me and how I think about what we need to do to get the outcome that we want. So I think when you have these expectations that you talk about, and I know people may have those expectations for us as a team and for me as a coach, but I don't really pay any attention to that. But because if you do, you just kind of set yourself up for failure. Because now all of a sudden you're worrying about the expectation and the outcome, which creates a lot of anxiety, and you're not really focusing on the things that will get you the outcome that you want. All right, things that affect the outcome by what you do on a daily basis, how you talk to players, whatever you need to do to motivate people, the kind of plan you put together to make sure you're doing the things that players can actually do. So I don't really feel like I have pressure, but my pressure is coming from me in terms of the standard that I have that you try to achieve with the coaching staff, the people in the organization, the standard of excellence you want everybody to sort of work toward across the board in personal development and academic support and career development. Everyone that has anything to do with a player in terms of his development, we have a high expectation and a high standard for how they do that, and ultimately we're trying to help them be more successful in life. So I know that from a fan's perspective, there's nothing that matters but winning or losing the game. But from a coaching perspective, you're trying to teach lessons in life that are going to help them be winners in life. And I think there's a lot of teaching, which I enjoy doing, but at the same time, try to stay focused on the process of what we need to do to get the outcome that we want. And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and we're not affected by what everybody else is thinking or saying or whatever.
Coach Nick Saban is with us. Also, Charlie Potter, reporter for Bama Online. We're coming right back. Don't you go away. There's lots more to go. More of your questions at 877-202-BAMA. This is Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Everybody bunched up, quarterback sneak, pushing the pile forward, and that looked like Alabama. Touchdown, Crimson Tide. Jalen Milroe on the quarterback heap. They bunched everybody in and said, let's see if your 11 can stop ours.
The old tush-push play that we're seeing more and more of originated with that title from the Philadelphia Eagles of the National Football League. Welcome back, everybody. Eli Gold, Charlie Potter, reporter for Bama Online, and Coach Nick Saban joining us here on the show. This evening's program being brought to you in part by Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. With zero sugar and refreshingly delicious, is Coca-Cola Zero Sugar the best Coke ever? Find out for yourself. Let's go to the phone lines now. And Harrison, he's in Florence, Alabama. Hello, Harrison.
Hey, Eli. How you doing tonight, Coach?
Good, Harrison. How are you?
Doing super. Want to go back to something you said earlier. There's no doubt that Chattanooga is going to be ready to play, and this is a huge opportunity for them. And one of the things I've noticed about them is I watched some highlights of their game against Furman on November 4th, and one of the things that they do on offense pretty regularly, at least that I noticed, was run trick plays, just giving it off to the running back, and then he'll give it to Watley, the wide receiver, and he'll air it out downfield. Is that something you've been stressing to the guys this week, and what's kind of the best strategy to defend against those kinds of plays?
Yeah, well, they have two receivers that have actually thrown passes, number 6 and number 2. One of them was a high school quarterback, so they've thrown reverse and reverse passes. They usually will run reverses, and they set up a reverse pass. They also had a reverse pass throwback to the quarterback, which is kind of a unique play that I've not seen for some time. So what we do on Thursdays is, we show all these trick plays and gimmicks, to our players, and then we'll sprinkle them in practice where they have to recognize them. And there's however many calls you have on defense, somebody different is responsible, and you can't just sit there and run trick plays all day, and you don't really know which one they're going to run in a game. But I agree with you that it's something that they have utilized effectively in their offense, and it's something that you have to have really good discipline on defense. It's almost like the old days when you played against a wishbone or option football. You had to play responsibility football. Somebody had to dive, somebody had to quarterback, somebody had to pitch. Well, that's kind of how you got to play all these plays. If somebody's got the backside flat, they got 4 and first cross, so they can't let the quarterback go. But the ones that are most difficult is when you play man-to-man, because nobody's assigned to the quarterback in man-to-man. So now you got to kind of make sure the defensive end peels him if he crosses his face. So there's a lot of coaching that goes into all these plays, and they don't happen very often, but they can really bite you in the butt if you don't prepare your players how to play them.
Yeah, Javin Watley, number 6, the coach is talking about, was a high school all-region quarterback playing in Rockmart, Georgia. And Jamoy Mays, a junior from Griffin, Georgia, also threw a lot of passes in his high school days, along with running track and field. So he's got speed, apparently, to go with his arm strength as well.
Yeah, these guys have, in my opinion, quality specialty guys, skill players on offense, equivalent to SEC teams. And the quarterback is, the guy was at UCLA for 4 years. He's a good player. So, you just got to play good, man. I mean, you control how you play. We need to be ready to play. We need to execute and play the way we need to play to our standard and not allow, sort of the momentum to not continue to grow for us.
Exactly. Charlie, jump on in, sir.
I guess keeping up with the Chattanooga talk, switching to the other side of the ball, they have a former Alabama player as their defensive coordinator with the Lorenzo Ward. Just what stands out about what they do defensively, and what kind of job has he done?
Oh, they're good on defense. I mean, they're very, very aggressive. They play a lot of quarters coverage. Their secondary is safeties are, really hard run fitters, which gives you an extra guy in the box, which you usually don't have anybody in the offensive line assigned to block a safety coming down in the box as aggressively as they do. So, but they have 2 really good edge players, number 53 and number 30. I'm not great at remembering everybody's name, but they both have quickness and are good edge rushers. They play hard on defense, and they're very sound in the way they play and what they do. So you got to beat them, you got to block them, you got to beat them, and they're going to play responsibility football, and it's important for our guys to go out and communicate and execute.
And in their level of football, Coach, they have the number 7 in the country in sacks. So apparently they do get to the quarterback fairly handily.
And I think that they do a good job of pushing the pocket in the middle, but I think these 2 edge rushers they got are kind of elite guys for their level and probably would fit right into SEC rushers as well.
I hear you. Coach, a visitor right here at the restaurant to your right, sir.
Hey, Coach Saban. I'm Taylor. I'm 13 years old from Sacramento, California.
Great.
I came out for my first Bama game. This is my most memorable moment. What was your most memorable game?
Most memorable game. Well, I hate to sound like crazy, but it was the last one. And the most important one is the next one. So, now there's been a lot of great games. I mean, a lot of great games. Championship games where we've had success are so memorable. I can't even explain the emotion of the team. And then almost the sadness when you have a group of guys that have, accomplished something that is special to win a championship. And when you're in the locker room at the end of the game, there's so much joy and jubilation, but it's kind of the last time we're all going to be together. So there's a sadness that kind of goes with that too, because you have so much respect and appreciation for what everybody's done, but then it's over. And there's not one particular game that I could say that this was special. They're all special. All the championship games are special. The playoff games that we've had, but to be honest with you, I remember and think more about the games we lost than the ones we won. Like the 3 championship games that we lost haunt me a lot more, and I think a lot more about things that we could have done differently. I should have called timeout, something that would have maybe impacted the outcome, and I didn't. I think about that a lot more than the games that we won.
As young as you are, how do you become a Bama fan living in Sacramento? You don't pull for Sacramento State or the 49ers in the NFL?
I mean, I like the 49ers too, but I mean, it's the Tide. I'm always going to love the Tide.
Sign that man up right there. Sign him up
Appreciate it.
right there. Good answer. Thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it. Hey, Coach, the second question from the Nick Saban Show readers on AL.com comes from Jack in Tullahoma, Tennessee. He said, hey, Coach, it's been your practice to bring in outstanding speakers to educate and motivate the team. Do you still use Dr. Elko? And have you ever considered leadership guru John Maxwell? We appreciate you and your family.
Right. I don't know the name John Maxwell. I don't think we've ever had him. We still do talk to Kevin Elko on a weekly basis. He actually comes in and speaks to the team on occasion. He does leadership seminars with the team a couple times a semester.
Right.
And most of the speakers that we actually have, we don't have during the season. You know, we have most of those in the off season and in fall camp.
Right.
So when we're in fall camp, you know, we have a speaker almost every night of the week. And then we have periodic speakers throughout the year as a part of our what we call personal development program, which is not just motivational, but it's also educational in terms of developing the right attitude, to have goals and aspirations, what you have to do to accomplish those goals and aspirations, and what kind of discipline you have to execute it, but also behavioral issues that affect young people and, you know, in the personal development program. And we're really trying to teach cause and effect, you know, with guys, and, you know, consequences of good and bad behavior.
Sure.
So, you know, a lot of us learned cause and effect when we were growing up because, you know, Mom kept a switch on the refrigerator and said, if you do that again, we'll get the switch out, so we didn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sure that happens all the time, but in this day and age. But we don't have any switches, but we do try to educate the guys, whether it's drugs, alcohol, agents, gambling, how to treat the opposite sex, macho man stuff, fights, guns, you know,
Sure.
all kinds of things that if you make a mistake in this day and age in any of those areas, it can be really detrimental to your future opportunities to be successful.
Yeah. Charlie, got a question?
Yeah, you just talked about discipline. It sounds like you've recently vowed to pay $5 whenever you cuss in meetings now. What went about that swear jar coming about?
Yeah, it's costing me. But, you know, what the players are campaigning for, which I have not given into as of yet, but it would make me a better person if I would do it, is they want me to pay for any swearing on the field. So that would be very costly.
Yeah.
Might need to drop that down to $1.
I might need to get a loan from Miss Terry on that
On that note, we're going to break away. We'll come right back and we'll continue. Folks at home, whatever you're saying, continue to say it. We're returning after this on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
4 on the play clock. 3, 2, snaps it at 1. Jalen looking, scrambling to his right, directing traffic, looking downfield, has a man catch made Williams. 10, 5, end zone, touchdown, Alabama.
We welcome you back after the Crimson Tide win over the Kentucky Wildcats. This weekend, we'll have coverage of Alabama and Chattanooga on the air at 8 o'clock in the morning with the kickoff at 11 a.m. Hey Coach is the name of our show. We're presented by Alpha Insurance. Protect your cars, home, life, and business with Alpha. Get a quote or find a local agent at alphainsurance.com. Hey Coach, on the Nick Saban Show and our media guest, Charlie Potter. Welcome in, sir.
It's good to be here again.
Yes, it's good to have you back. What's on your mind now as we work towards the end of the hour?
Yeah, for Coach, you talked about after the game how a few of the players, looked at you and looked at the crowd and saw that they were leaving. And you talk about beating the team or beating the other team. I know this game's at home, but you've mentioned the word hateful competitors in the past. Just have you seen some of those on this year's team? Is that maybe a difference from the last couple of years?
I wouldn't like to compare teams. I think what this team has done is, and I didn't say anything about that in playing on the road, to the guys this year, but, it has been, one of the things that, we talked about in the past to try to get the guys to understand, how hard it is to play on the road and how difficult it is to dominate a competition when you have, all the spirit and that the fans give. You got to beat that too.
Right.
That was kind of the reason for it. And some of the guys mentioned that to me. I really wasn't paying much attention. I was more paying attention to the 74-yard run that they had when we put the second defense in.
Right.
Everybody missed a tackle and the guy ran for 75 yards or whatever. But anyway, that is one of the things, though, that I think players have to really have respect for, how difficult it is to play in an environment when you're playing on the road. I mean, it's actually not a disrespect to the other team, it's a respect for, their fans, their spirit, their traditions, and all that kind of stuff. But it makes you understand that you have to beat that too. And you have to keep the momentum of the game in your favor by continuing to make plays and sort of taking the fans out of the game. I remember, some of the greatest experiences I had when I was an assistant at Ohio State. Woody Hayes wasn't a coach, but every now and then he'd come around and you'd hear him talk. And, we were going to play Wisconsin and they were pretty good. And he said, the number one thing you have to do is make the fans sit on their hands. If you can make the fans sit on their hands, you guys will be fine. So with like a minute to go in half, we were ahead 14-0, and player fumbles the punt, and they recover it and score right before the half. And I thought the press box was going to fall off the stadium. I mean, and from that time on, man, we ended up getting beat like 21-20 or something. But it was the momentum of that play and the impact that it had on that game and how it ignited the fans was unbelievable. But when I talk about momentum, that's what I'm talking about. But it's not just in games. It's sort of in your season and how your team is progressing and how you're creating a rhythm and that confidence is growing and developing. So important.
Yep, indeed. So, Coach, it's time for your final word of the week, presented each week by Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz, the vehicles are all electric. The feeling is all Mercedes.
Yeah, well, I think that, we touched on this before, but I think in this last game that this team's going to play in Bryant-Denny Stadium, it's really all the fans come out, support the team. This team has done a fantastic job of working hard to improve and giving you something to be proud of and going to the SEC championship game. And the seniors that have played and given up, 4 years of hard work to entertain you and help you. This is your opportunity to sort of give back to them and to have the proper respect for the team that we're playing and the support that we need to be able to play well, because we can lose in this game, sometimes even if you win, if you don't carry out the momentum. And that momentum has been fantastic, and our fans have contributed to that momentum in an unbelievable way this year, maybe more than I can ever remember, in the LSU and the Tennessee game.
Sure.
So to continue that, I think, is something that's really important to our team being able to continue that momentum in the future.
Well, Coach, with that said, we thank you as always for your time. We'll see you next Wednesday night. Because of our Thanksgiving schedule, we moved the show back to Wednesday. But have yourself a great weekend, and thanks again for being here.
All right, thank you. Appreciate you.
And Charlie, good to see you, sir.
It was good to see you too, Eli.
And hopefully we'll have a great weekend to talk about and then get set next week for the next game on the schedule.